What's up, everybody? Paul here from the Hoops Crew, and the AFL Finals are upon us for season 2025. There's been a long wait for this. This has been the longest home and away season of all time. And as Cats fans, we felt pretty confident for the last few months that we'd secured our spot, and it was only a matter of where would we finish. So we've been looking forward to this now for quite some time, and hopefully a tilt on a premiership in season 2025. The net result, we'll have to wait and see. But I'm going to get into some predictions today. We might re-look at this week after week throughout the course of the final series because, of course, whatever I predict here may not necessarily eventuate. And so we'll kind of look at the combinations and permutations on a week-by-week basis and see how it's all shaping up, of course, leading to a final AFL Premiership stoush at the end of the season, hopefully one that the Cats are a part of. That, of course, remains to be seen, though. But let's set up the stage here and look at what we've got going into this final series. So as things stand, going into week one, the grand final kind of tucked away off the side there. We'll inch our way towards it. But as things stand, I don't know why they've got to be confirmed next to all these because they're all kind of locked in at this point in time. But anyway, Adelaide and Collingwood Thursday night, Geelong and Brisbane Friday night, and then your elimination finals across the Saturday. This is a really interesting final series because a lot of these teams have had, big wins. They've also had some surprising upset losses, not just to some teams that have missed out on finals, but also to each other. There's been some scenarios we thought, okay, this is a pretty sure thing. This team's maybe a bit battered and bruised and injured. And then they've ultimately gone on to lose for one reason or another. Now, of course, this is a Geelong platform. I am a Geelong fan. And so there's probably a little bit of bias that might influence my opinions as we go here. We'll see how it all eventuates. And certainly as this finals campaign continues, tune into each of these videos as I go on to make my predictions for the different games, because depending on what happens, especially if it doesn't go quite to plan, my faith in Geelong might strengthen or it might begin to waver. So bear with me as we go through this because my opinions could vary from week to week. But right now, we've got 4 games that we need to go through here. As I said, Adelaide and Collingwood, GWS and Hawthorn, Fremantle and Gold Coast, and then Geelong and Brisbane. And we'll start with the qualifying finals so we can kind of build out what week 2 is going to look like, what week 3 is going to begin to look like, and go from there. But before we get into any of that, let's take a word from our sponsor.
The Hoops Crew Media Network is proudly sponsored by Cyril Cook Florist. Visit them at shop 1211 Leather Street in Breakwater. Phone them on 035 222 2244 or visit their website at www.cyrilcookflorist.com.au and use the offer code GOCATS in the voucher field at checkout to get 20% off your next online purchase.
Thank you, Cyril Cook Florist, as always, for your ongoing support of the Hoops Crew and all we get up to. Now, let's start to pull this apart, of course. And I will check the times as we go since the AFL have kind of butchered this a little bit with it when it comes to their ladder predictor. We'll make sure we get our times right. So we've got our first game. In fact, we'll go sequential order. Yeah, we'll go the qualifying finals and then work through the elimination finals from there. So our first game is the Adelaide and Collingwood game. Thursday night, it is 7:40 at Adelaide Oval. And, of course, the last time these two played, only a matter of a few weeks ago now, it's ultimately ended up being a pretty controversial game. Of course, there was the Isaac Rankin comments. This game, if the Crows go on to lose it, allows for the possibility of Isaac Rankin to return. If the Crows then go on to make a grand final, then Isaac Rankin can return for that grand final. But also, when they played, Adelaide got the chocolates. Broke a drought that had been continuing for quite some time. They've been really struggling against the Pies. They were always close. They were pushing and pushing and pushing, but couldn't get the win. And then in this particular case, the Pies had something like 71 or 72 inside 50s to about 36 or 37. They absolutely dominated the Crows in a bunch of areas and yet came up with the loss. They just couldn't capitalize. Their forward 50 entries amounted to very little. The Crows were hyper efficient. Will that happen again? And if so, will the Pies actually take advantage of their opportunities? Well, I trust in the Crows here because I think they're going to look at they got lucky to get over the line, but they're going to look at what worked and what didn't. and they're going to tweak some things here to make sure that I think the midfield blend, they kind of got, Dacos and a few of the boys got on a bit of a roll there and started to deliver that ball inside 50 with frequency. I think the midfield unit in particular, because the defensive line held up really well. The forwards, they did their thing whenever the ball got to them. But the midfielders kind of struggled a little bit that day. The Jordan Dawsons and the team just didn't quite match the Pies like they needed to. They were important when it counted at the very end to hold them off, but they struggled to kind of capitalize on some opportunities, to capitalize on some dominance at a few opportunities and kind of negate the Pies and their momentum at different stages as well. So I think they'll look at the feedback from that game, what worked and what didn't, and they'll go and get themselves a win in this particular case, setting up one half of your week 2 and week 3 finals. Next up, we'll shift down here to our other qualifying final, the Cats and the Lions. Now, of course, I did say, probably a little bit of bias here. I'm going to go with the Cats, but I'm going to explain why. Sorry, Brisbane Spoilers, let me explain why. You're depleted. Essentially, Brisbane is a little bit hampered at the moment. Now, Lachie Neale, from all reports, is due to come back in, but of course, has he gotten his body in the shape it needs to be in to launch into the finals campaign, or were they just, we have to get him back for week 1, even if he's at 85, 90%. And if he's at 85, 90%, and then we go and put a Mark O'Connor or someone on him who's done a good job in the past, that could be the thing that takes him out of the game entirely. You've then also got Eric Hipwood, who's out for quite a few weeks. He will definitely not be featuring in this matchup based on all reporting up to this point, as of this vacuum in time that I'm recording it. And so while I don't rate Eric Hipwood, structurally, he's still really important. You can't ignore him. I don't think he's nearly as good as all the other key forwards around him and as many as the key forwards in the rest of the competition. But you can't ignore him. He is still very athletic. He can mark the ball. And when he catches fire, he can be really hard to stop. And we've seen that. We've experienced that in the past when he's had, these 10-minute patches where he's just suddenly on the end of everything and everything's sticking and he's launching him from a mile away. It can be a real challenge to stop him at different stages, but he's not going to be there. And so that leaves Day and Morris. Now, Morris obviously is playing like an absolute rock star, so far ahead of where most people would have projected him to be developmentally in his career up to this stage. He is absolutely lighting it up. And I don't expect him to necessarily struggle. But of course, he's been kicking, I think the last game he played against us, he kicked 5 or 6 or something like that. He had a really good game. He's played a lot of really good games lately. But the finals does typically bring you back to the pack somewhat. And so his, 4s that he's been kicking might just trickle back to 2 when the lockdown kind of occurs, when the contested ball really amps up and everyone switches into overdrive when it comes to their defensive pressure. And so I think that's going to make it a little bit harder for him. Day is kind of making up the numbers these days. He's definitely past his peak. He's now super important in the absence of Hipwood, and of course Danaher as well. But I think it's going to be a real struggle for these two key forwards. So then it's about making sure that you keep Charlie in check, that you keep Cam Rayner in check, that you keep Zach Bailey in check. And these guys have had some, good days against us in the past as well. I wouldn't be at all surprised if we play Charlie Cameron back into some form, because we've got a knack for that. But I think we'll get the job done because their forward line is a little bit weakened at the moment. Our forwards, Shannon Neal's going to come back. He's going to be nice and refreshed. Jeremy Cameron is the Coleman Medal winner this year. Our small forwards are elite. Our midfield unit is probably our weakest component, but we're talking about Holmes and Smith and Atkins and many others that roll through that part of the ground. Of course, Dangerfield when he needs to go there as well. I'd love to see him in the midfield for the first bounce just to set the tone. And hopefully that game is over nice and early. I doubt it. This is the reigning premiers that we're coming up against here. But I think we're in a good position here to at least break even in that midfield, especially with the likes of Neale being a little bit undercooked right now. But they've got depth from Ashcroft to McCluggage, Neale, and many others that can roll through there. We need to be on our game and also taking advantage of our opportunities as well. So Cats, I think, for the win, but not with the greatest level of confidence. It's going to be a tricky one at the MCG. We can then flick to our Giants and Hawthorn game, where I think the Giants on their home deck are still going to have a real challenge because they're depleted. Jesse Hogan's been out. Jake Stringer's had his hamstring issues. There's been other players that have kind of been down and out at different stages. They've been getting there through force of will and a lot of talent, I might add. But does this get the better of them? The Hawks have been playing some phenomenal football in the last couple of months, as they've kind of really found some of that early season form again. But is that enough to carry them? I'm going to tip the Hawks in this one, to be honest. I think the Hawks will get the job done. They'll go to Sydney and get the points in this one, just because the Giants are just in some really important parts of the ground. They're battered up, they're bruised, or they're not even going to be playing altogether. And then that leaves another fascinating one, Fremantle and Gold Coast. Freo, who can be up and down like a bit of a yo-yo at times, but have been playing largely good football for the last few months. Gold Coast, who've also been a bit up and down, but are now playing their first finals campaign. I'm worried that they've maybe had their grand final in the last week or so, where they've had these two back-to-back matches, got them and had a massive scare, nearly missed out on the finals. They've gotten in, but then I'm worried that maybe they get rolled out really quickly. I think I'm going to tip the Suns, though, in this one. I think that they'll be able to travel to WA. They've got the class, they've got the talent, and they've got the likes of King, who are in really good form. They've got some really solid key defenders. Their midfield, I think, stacks up very, very well against Freo's. I think they can go over to WA and get the points. So we're talking about two upsets in the elimination finals, that the home teams get bundled out. That then leaves us, and I'm not going to talk about these, to nearly the same level, because, of course, we've got multiple of these videos still to come, but you then got Collingwood and Hawthorn, where I think the Pies get the points. You've got Brisbane and the Suns. I think Brisbane assert their dominance and use their experience and get the win. Adelaide and Brisbane is going to be huge. I'll back the Crows in at home. I'll back the Cats in against the Pies, who've just not been that great for the most part. And then that takes us to a grand final, Cats and Crows. Cats at the MCG get a premiership in 2025. Those are my thoughts, though. And this is bound to evolve over the course of the next couple of weeks, depending on what happens in week 1 of the finals, let alone week 2 and 3. So stay tuned for more of these videos as we go through the finals campaign week by week. But that's where we'll wrap things up. If you've enjoyed this video, please make sure to subscribe to the Hoops Crew on YouTube, like this video, share it with your friends and family, get the word out there about all the content we're creating. We're also on Patreon, patreon.com/thehoopscrew. There's a 7-day free trial period to get all of our early access, extended, and exclusive content. And if you like it, $5 a month is all it takes to continue to get it delivered directly to your email inbox. You'll find me at Paul James Games on Twitter, Blue Sky, and Instagram. The Hoops Crew is at The Hoops Crew. And until next time, like I said, stay tuned for more of these. We'll have a round 2 of finals predictions video, a round 3 of finals, a round 4 grand final predictions. Stay tuned for all of it. But thank you all very much for watching. Remain Geelong strong, and I'll see you later.